Good morning, dolls, and welcome to Little Gretchen's workshop. So today I'm going to show you how I wig the men or add hair to their heads and also their facial hair. Now here I'm using some viscose that I have. It's a little bit coarser texture than a lot of the viscose you see on the market. I will leave a link in the description where I got it from, but I'm cutting it into little bits because I need it to look like short cut hair. I don't want the men's hair to be long. And I mixed it kind of a salt and pepper, the gray and black, because I wanted these men to look mature and what we used to call seasoned and distinguished. I think that's a very nice look for men. So I'm starting with this doll that I sculpted from Cos Clay polymer clay in a previous video, and I will leave a link in the description for when I made him. So wigging the men is a little bit simpler. I don't have to be quite as careful as I do when I'm making the women because I'm just covering the head unless you want your doll to have like a receding hairline or something like that, which is also a lot of fun. Little things like that really add a lot of variety and character to the doll. So let your imagination lead you. So I'm just patting the little cut up fibers of hair directly into the glue and I'm patting it in because I actually want it to saturate. Now my brush is a little bit damp so that the glue doesn't dry up fast, but I'm just patting it just randomly all over the head and smashing it into the glue. Now this is going to take some time. You're going to have to be patient, and I want to forewarn you, it's going to look very pre-K before it looks better. But the dolls were very patient with me, and you can see how I'm just covering it little by little. Now, this technique can definitely be used on modern and vintage hairstyles. And I am using Tacky Glue, and I'm pretty sure any other PVA type glue would work. This is so amusing to me watching this because he really looks bad, but you just have to trust the process and just keep working. Now you'll see here in the next couple frames that I got a little impatient and just started smashing large chunks in, which is not a problem because I'm adding a lot of the glue and the water to it. Again, it looks really bad, but this tacky glue is going to dry absolutely clear. It's not going to discolor the hair or anything. It's not going to look white and weird. So again, just continue to work and just pat it in. I really love how the chopped up hair along with the glue drying and patting it in, it gives the hair a really nice coarse texture that looks very authentic, and it really mimics the look of 4C hair. Now again, at this stage, it looks like an absolute mess. It looks like I've made a complete disaster of his hair, but I'm really loving it because I'm excited because I really want you all to see how well this process works. So now you see I kind of have that base layer that was a lot of the gray color. So now I'm beginning to add a little bit more black and to add more fullness to the crown of the head. And those are the type of details you really want to pay attention to when you're doing hair, especially hair for men. The hair is generally, if they have hair, it's going to be fuller at the top unless they're balding. It'll just depend on what type of character you're doing. Now here I'm starting to gently add it around the sides near his temples because I'm going to bring it down and give him sideburns and a beard. So just like when I was working with doing the ladies' hair, when I got around the face and the temples, I was a little bit more deliberate in my placement of the hair. Now here you see me adding a little blob of the tacky glue right to that temple area because I'm about to smash a blob of hair into it to create his sideburns. So when you're doing the sideburns, the main objective is to just get the hair on there. The tacky glue will allow you enough time to manipulate it and get it into the shape you want, but you just want to get it on there so it can absorb the glue and you can really shape it neatly. Now the tip of my brush is slightly damp with water. I'm kind of dipping it in and out of my water and glue solution, and literally it's the same water and glue solution that I use to make my curtains. sideburns. You just squeeze a little tacky glue in a small container, mix it with water, and it should look like really thin, watered down milk. Now, while you're working on the sideburns, don't neglect to come back and pat the hair a little bit, because as it dries and the glue and water absorb, it's going to take on a nice texture, so you'll really be able to shape and manipulate the hair fibers to kind of make it look like a little lumpy, or and push it around the hairline or the nape of the neck, so it won't be too far down unless that's the look you're going for. So just take this opportunity to play with it, and while you're working on the hair, the sideburns will be absorbing the glue. So now, although you're focusing on one part at a time, constantly turn your dial, working all the way around the head and face to make things look even as possible. Now I'm starting to work on his goatee. So growing up, all the men I knew had facial hair, mustaches, beards. So facial hair is standard. So in addition to the goatee, he's going to actually have a full beard that connects to the sideburns, and he will have a mustache. So I've got quite a bit of work to do here, and that's why I'm adding an ample amount of the glue. Now, I don't put a lot of glue on the face like I would do the hair, because I definitely don't want it to get out of control where it's just too much. But I'm packing the hair in layers. So I add the glue. I pack a clump of hair. After I get it shaped, I'll just continue to add it on as it dries, because I want it to appear very thick and dense, not sparse. Now in this process, you can use a toothpick, your finger, the dotting tool, but make sure you keep the watered down glue with the paintbrush handy so you can use it as needed. Now, depending on how big you want the mustache to be would determine how much glue you use, but I did an ample amount and then began to just smash little clumps of hair under the nose. And again, you don't want to use too much, because you don't want to see clumps of glue under his nose and above his lip, because that would look like something else. Now, I know he looks a little rough right now, but to me, he's really starting to take on a dad look. I wonder if anybody can guess who he actually is. Now, here is an instance where do as I say, not as I do. I did put quite a bit of glue there and really didn't intend for it to be that much. But no worries, dolls. I'm going to add hair to it and reshape it, and it's going to work out fine. But I'm just leaving this here just to let you know that even if you make a mistake, it doesn't mean that the project is ruined. It just means you're going to have to take a little bit more time to correct it. So let's just kick the fear of failure out the door right now. So you see, I'm just using my little brush with the watered down glue on it, and I just keep shaping it. I push it down off his cheek. So to me, this is really a lot of fun, because men's facial hair grows in so many different ways depending on the man, his heredity. So take the time and just kind of play with it, and anywhere you don't want hair or you get a little glue, just wipe it off with a baby wipe or a Q-tip and just keep moving. Now, I know we're working on the beard and the sideburns, but I want you to just take a glance at the hair, how it's starting to look now that it's drying. I really, really love this look and this technique. Now, if you notice, his face looks a little bit dry, but I will add a teeny drop of olive oil to make his face look more moisturized after everything is done. Now, here at this point, I'm pushing the hair down with the butt of my paintbrush to kind of give it more shape under his eye and around his nose. So, dolls, you can use almost anything to manipulate the hair after it's saturated with the glue and water solution. Now, as I mentioned earlier, as it dries, you'll still have quite a bit of manipulation time. But when you're done with it, set him aside and allow him to dry. Now, dolls, I was going to repair the top part of his ear that I sanded off when I created his head, but the hair camouflaged it, so I'm going to let it stand. So let me give him a break and allow him to dry. Now, dolls, let me show you what I did to this fellow. Now, this was the little elderly man that I purchased from Minimum World. Now, again, he's a mass-produced doll. I didn't particularly like his clothes, so I redressed him. And so now I'm adding hair to his head in the same fashion, different technique. I'm adding a little bit more silver and gray toward the front of his head, because I want him to look a little bit older than the gentleman that's sitting down and drying. And also, like I mentioned before, he's got to have facial hair, so I'm adding in extra hair around the edges to give him sideburns as well. So different doll, different style, but same technique. Now, in this gentleman's case, I'm really have to work carefully because he doesn't actually have any ears. So I have to pretend that there are ears there and just shape the hair in a way that gives the illusion that he has ears. Now, I do have this portion of the video sped up quite a bit because I've already showed you the technique, but I just wanted you to see the technique that it works, whether it's done on a doll that you created yourself with polymer clay or a doll that already exists, but you want to give them a look that fits into your setting better. So here I am working on his mustache, blending it up to match and blend over into his sideburns. I wanted him to have a bigger, fuller mustache to almost make his lip disappear. Still tapping it in, but I just want you to see how different the characters look just because of the facial hair. Now I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit here so you can see his hairline and how I kind of swirled his hair in the front to give his style a little distinction and to reveal his wrinkles in his forehead. So I'm really happy with his look, so I'm going to set him aside to allow him to dry. And this is the next day. I'm checking on the first man that I worked on. The hair is firm, it's nice and hard. You can look at him and see there's no glue showing. I really, really like it. And you can see this gentleman as well. His hair is solid. It looks really great. Now, upon further inspection, I saw a few thin spots in his hair, but no worries. I just added a little bit more of the watered down Tacky Glue solution and just added a few fibers of hair. So don't ever be worried that you didn't get it perfect the first time. If you come back to it, look at it. If you're not satisfied, you can always add more hair in. Now, make sure you always check both sides, but even with that, you don't have to be super concerned because we're not symmetrical anyway. Now here I am with a little piece of cotton just cleaning off his face to make sure there's no glue left on his face. I'm just making his hairline look really, really neat. I think he turned out really, really nice. So I'm really glad that I was able to show you this technique on a doll so you can see how little details and changes like this to a doll can give them so much character and way more distinction. So I did find a few thin spots in his beard because many times you don't notice it until after the glue is dry where you need to fill in or thicken certain areas, and it allowed me to make the gray more prominent in the beard. Now I'm going to allow him to dry. So let me show you really quick how I transformed this little guy. So he was looking a little pitiful. I mean, just his hair was all sparse. He didn't have any facial hair. His eyebrows were really faint. So I used the exact same concept. So I just randomly added what was left over from doing the other two men. And I think it really worked out nice because I ended up with more of a concentration of the black. And I thought it really added to his character because he's kind of a stocky, kind of thick, kind of buff looking guy. So the dark hair to me really added to his character. Now with him, I want you to pay attention and notice that I'm doing his hair a little bit differently. Now with the other two men where I was trying to more or less mimic 4C hair, I didn't do that with him. Although I'm using the same texture viscose, I didn't add the water and glue solution to the top and coat it. I'm just smashing it into the glue and kind of rounding it and shaping it to the contour, to the shape of his head. And you can see me here doing a lot of patting and smashing and smoothing, but I'm just doing it with my hands. I'm not using the watered down glue on the brush. Now I did use the butt of the brush to shape it around his ears and smooth it. Now after I was satisfied with his hair, I went on to add black to his eyebrows because his manufacturer eyebrows were really, really flimsy looking. So I really wanted him to have a stronger, more defined brow line. And here I'm just using my dotting tool to push those sideburns around to make sure they're shaped the way I want them to be around his ear and his temple. Now here I am just using a little wood stick to add a thin bead of glue right under his nose, above his lip, so that I can add his mustache. And you see here I started out trying to add the hair very sparingly above his lip until I got to the point where I really realized that I wanted it to be much heavier, not a thin, skinny mustache. So I kept adding it until he looked like the character that I was trying to create. Now, after I finished with his mustache, I really liked the way it looked with the sideburns, but I just felt like he wasn't finished. Now, I know this sounds kind of crazy, but I feel like many times dolls tell you who they are. You could be working on them and have one idea in your mind, and as you work, a different image emerges. So you just go with it. And again, I want you to take notice that even though I am using the brush a little bit, I just used it to add the glue to his face before I added the hair. All the rest of the smoothing I did with his beard, mustache, and sideburns, I did with my finger just to smush the hair into the glue so that it would be solid. Now here I am adding him a small goatee and using my dotting tool to arrange it and manipulate it into the shape that I want. And after I felt comfortable with the shape, I added more hair and I kept working until I got the fullness and the definition that I was looking for. Now, I definitely played around with his mustache chops and goatee a little bit more because I was trying to make it a little thinner and more defined. And then after his hair got to a certain level of dryness, I began to press the needle tool into it to give his hair kind of the impression that it had sort of a wave pattern. So I hope you can see now that I used the same material, a very similar technique. I just omitted coating it with glue on the outside. So the hair is a little bit smoother, but it still has quite a bit of texture. So let me give him a break and let me show you the other couple dolls I did. So I just want to go over a couple things. Now, these two young men, they didn't get any facial hair because they're preteens, but I did just recently make them hands in another video. Now, this young man, he didn't have any hair, any arms. His body was made out of a different material. I'm not quite done with him. He's still under construction. Even though he's not finished, he let me know that he didn't want to be left out of the picture when I photographed the men in this video. So I'm just trimming him up a little bit so he can be included. I do have more work to do on him, but he wants to be included in the final photograph. So here are the men. I have completed their beards and mustaches. They are fully dressed, and I also added hair to their eyebrows. And here is this gentleman. He's got his eyebrows on. Everything is dry. I think he turned out really, really nice. They all seem to be really, really happy with their new looks. Now, I did get the other young man ready for the final photo shoot, but I just wanted to finish showing you this gentleman's complete outfit. He's got on a vest and a shirt. Made him a nice blazer, and I actually used that fabric that I got from the free table at the Ann Arbor Miniature Show to make his vest and his trousers. And I think that really looks nice, a really nice, neat herringbone pattern. So I think he looks great. Oh, and I just wanted you to see him stand alone with no stand. So dolls, if you've enjoyed this video today, definitely let me know in the comments. Also, like, share, and subscribe, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of Little Gretchen's Workshop. Bye-bye now, dolls.